Today we'll be doing a valve seal replacement on a 1970 small block 318 Chrysler. It should be the same for a 273, 340, 360, 440 and so on. This is a typical valve spring compressor tool here. There's other types that you can use. This is just one we happen to be using today. What you'll want to do is grab a little towel and plug up the oil galleys that are right below every couple of springs. There's an oil galley there. You want to plug it up with a little towel or something, so in case you drop a spring, the retainer down in the hole, especially if you have the intake manifold still in the car, it could be bad. So make sure you plug that up. Right now you can see just using the tool, getting the spring tightened down, compressed. Off to the side here, on a side note, you can see we have a hose running down into the spark plug hole. That's got 90 pounds of air pressure running into the spark plug hole just to keep the valve from dropping into the cylinder. There's other ways you can do that. You can research that, but this is the way we've chose to keep the valve from dropping into the cylinder. What he's going to do now is give it a light tap on the spring tool excuse me, after it's compressed, to get it to drop down and make room to get the retainer out. We've got a small magnet head, well, a little bit larger magnet head. We'll use a smaller one to replace it, but right now we got a little bit larger diameter magnet to pull the retainer out. It should pretty much grab the retainer and come right out with the magnet. You can push down a little bit on the spring tool if you need to get a little extra space to work in there and to get that retainer clip to come loose. As you can see, it'll come right out once you get space. There's little grooves on that retainer, as well as little grooves on the valve stem itself, which hold those retainers in place. So once he's got the first one out, he'll spin that back retainer around to the front to make it easier to go ahead and use that same magnet head and get the retainer out from the spring. Again, he just spun the back one around once the front one was off. You get yourself a little bit more room and a little easier to see and a little easier to get out. There's no manifold on this car at the moment. It was being upgraded to a floor barrel, so you might have a little extra room here to do some work or whatnot. But again, especially if you have a manifold on the car, you definitely want to plug that little oil galley up so you don't, in case you don't drop anything down there. So you see he took the spring off pretty easily. This valve seal that's in here now is very brittle. It's very stiff and really didn't have a good seal around the valve stem itself. So you'll pull that off and chuck it in the can. And what he's going to do now is take the retainers that just came off. Put the valve seal back in place first. Push it down on there nice and firm. It'll be a nice tight fit with the new ones once that's down in place. Now he'll get the retainers that came off, put a little dab of some heavy grease onto the retainer clip. What this will do is act a little bit like a glue, little dab right in the grooves, and as he's putting it back on, it'll help grab onto that valve stem a little bit and not want to have the tendency to fall backwards or to fall out. For lack of a better term, just a little bit like glue. Once that first one is in, you'll spin it around to the back, so you have room to put the next one in without having to try putting it in from the back side. This, I'd imagine, could be preference to however you want to do it, but this seems a little easier to just spin that around towards the back of the back side of the spring. Leave room to do the same process again with the second retainer. This is a little bit smaller head of a magnet to put it back as it was to take it out. It kind of helps to not be as strong, easier to release it when you get it in there. You can see if he'll push down a little bit on the spring compressor tool at times to get some extra space in there, but once they're in and on the grooves, you'll know that they're in there. They're pretty well held together as long as they're in the grooves. Now I'll just unscrew the spring compressor tool, and it should have a nice fit. You'll see they're basically flush with the top of the spring. And that's just about it. On this particular car, we had disc brakes on it, so it has a power booster. We had to take the 4 bolts from the power booster and move it off out of the way to the side to get to the first 2 valve springs on the back of the block there. The tool wouldn't fit with that in the way. Thank you for watching.